Hello again, math students. Today we're going to continue working with the Pythagorean theorem, but today instead of me just giving you pictures of triangles with numbers on them, sometimes you're going to have to draw a picture to represent the situation that we're talking about. Or, for instance, on the learning check, I might have problems that have a picture, but it's part of an actual picture or situation, not just a triangle. So we're going to have to be thinking about, again, if we're finding a leg or a hypotenuse in these. So if I say that a ladder is placed 5 feet away from the house, so the base of the ladder is 5 feet away from the house, and it comes up to 12 feet on the side of the house, I want to know how long the ladder is. When we do these kind of problems, if you had drawn this with the triangle going the other way, that's no big deal. When you are drawing your own pictures, please don't bother drawing a big brick wall like this. If I was just drawing this myself, what I would do is I would say, all right, here's the house. The ladder is 5 feet away, and that's my ladder. Here it's saying that it reaches 12 feet up the house. Notice I didn't draw a picture of a house. You certainly can, but you don't need to. This is the ladder, which also happens to be the sea. Now, that's my way of drawing it. Here's a much nicer version, but I'm still looking for the hypotenuse. And again, remember, Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So the a in this case can either be the 5 or the 12, and then the other number is going to be the b, and I'm looking for the c squared. 5 squared is 25, 12 squared is 144, and when I add those, I get 169, which happens to be a perfect square, so I'll take the square root of that. And again, since I'm looking for a length, I really don't need to put in plus or minus like we did when we were just solving regular equations. This is saying that it's going to be 13. Everything was measured in feet, so this would be 13 feet. Now, in my last lesson, I did mention Pythagorean triples. 5, 12, 13 is a Pythagorean triple. So any multiple of that would also work. So if I had, let's say, 10 and 24, the hypotenuse would be 26. It would just be this all multiplied by 2. Tiger has a rectangular garden that's 12 meters by 20 meters, and he wants to split it diagonally from corner to corner using a fence. How long does this fence need to be? Make sure that we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So here's my picture. Again, not fancy. It's a rectangular garden. One side is 20 meters, the other side is 12 meters. And apparently he wants to make it into a triangular garden or split it into 2 different kinds of gardens. So we've got this fence that's going along the diagonal. So yeah, it starts with a rectangle, and it does say that it's a rectangular garden, which means I do have a right angle. Remember, we can only do this if we've got right triangles. So the 12 and the 20 are my A and B, and the fence is again going to be my hypotenuse, the C. So I would have 12 squared plus 20 squared equals C squared. 12 squared is 144. 20 squared is 400. And then when I add those, I would get 544, which is not a perfect square. So we're going to need to take the square root on both sides and use a calculator. Again, only looking for the positive answer here. I'm going to use that squiggly kind of an equal sign. I don't think that I talked about that in my last video, but that's showing that we are approximating. So when I do this, I would get 23.3238, blah, 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 right? This is my spot that I'm worried about for the nearest tenths, and that 2 is not going to make it round up. So this is going to be 23.2 meters. Again, if it's the hypotenuse, it needs to be the longest length. So it had to be more than 20 for sure. Sally walks 4 miles due north and then 3 miles due east. So again, when we're talking about those kind of cardinal directions, we get a right angle. North and east are going to be perpendicular to each other, really. When it says, how far has she walked as the crow flies from her starting point? As the crow flies is a saying that just means if you just took a straight line, even if there isn't a path there. A bird doesn't need to follow roads. It could just fly in a straight path. Now, again, my picture would not look great, but we would say that she walks 4 miles north and then 3 miles east. And I want to know how far she is from where she started, right? That is a perfectly acceptable picture. I guess I could probably label that that's the hypotenuse, the C, right? Here it is a little bit better, but you don't need to take a lot of time on these pictures. Please don't feel like you need to be artistic for these pictures. When I solve this, the 3 and the 4 again are the legs. So I'm going to have 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. And when I add them, I get 25, which is a nice, perfect square. So when I take the square root of that, I'm going to get 5 equals c. And this was in miles. So this would be 5 miles from where she started. Now, speaking of Pythagorean triples, 3, 4, 5 is also a Pythagorean triple. So we could double that and get 6, 8, and 10, or 30, 40, and 50 if we'd multiply everything by 10, for instance. Okay, so I know I don't have a lot of examples here with these pictures, and your worksheet today is going to be pretty short anyway. So I thought that we could try a little bit of a challenge problem. I want to be able to find the area of this rectangle. But to find the area of a rectangle, you know that you have to take the length times the width. Well, the way that this is on my graph, I can't tell what the length or what the width are. And I don't even know if they're whole numbers. So what I need to do is consider the right triangles that would have, for instance, AD. I want this to be the hypotenuse of a right triangle. If I could draw a right triangle in here and just make sure that I get a right angle here. Now that AD, that's my hypotenuse, right? So this side is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I would have to do the Pythagorean theorem to find out how long the hypotenuse is for the longer side of this rectangle. So I would have 5 squared plus 9 squared equals c squared. Unfortunately, this is not a Pythagorean triple, so it's not going to be a nice whole number kind of answer. 25 plus 81. And when I add 25 and 81, I get 106. I hope that right now you could look at that and say, oh, my answer is going to be a little bit more than 10, right? Because the square root of 100 would be 10. So when I do this, that's going to be 10.3 when I round that. So this is 10.3. Now, for the shorter side of the rectangle, either AB or DC, I'm going to use AB right here. I'm going to make another right triangle where AB is the hypotenuse because this is a right angle. So this side is 2, and then this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 2 and 4 are my A and B, and I'm looking for this C. So 4 plus 16 is 20. And then square root. So the square root of 20 is going to be 4.5 when I round that. And then my last step to find the area of the rectangle, I do base times height or length times width. So I would have to do, let me change colors here, 10.3 times 4.5. Absolutely a calculator kind of an issue right now. 10.3 times 4.5 would give me 46.35 square units. I don't know what these units are. Now, we rounded each of the side lengths to the nearest tenth. A lot of times they'll say round everything to the nearest tenth. In that case, this would really be 46.4 cubic or square units. So be careful on that rounding issue. So today, The worksheet that you have only has 4 problems on it, but you have to start each problem by drawing the picture that's being described and then solving the Pythagorean theorem part of the problem. If you have a hard time finding those pictures, like getting the pictures from the information, look at the answer key. You can look at that and see if the picture makes sense there on this first day that you're working on this. When you're done with that and you check it in with the answer key in Schoology, make sure that you take the learning check. Let me know if you need help.